Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to another Tech Chat episode with Jeevan and Prashant. Both are great community builders. Both have done a lot of interesting work in the Bangalore tech community, as well as very popular in several AWS user groups. Jeevan and Prashant are also founders of AntStack, and today I really want to exchange thoughts, views, and a lot of interesting opinions about various things or how they have come up this far, like the hard work that they have put in building up their entire careers, etc. So welcome Jeevan and Prashant, and thanks for accepting to do a session with Tech Chat, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Arvind.
So great. Jeevan and Prashant, before we get started, I just want you to tell about yourself briefly, so that we audience would understand specifically about what we are talking, and your profile as well.
Prashant, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks a lot, Arvind, to have us on board with this. Really appreciate, you doing this for us, and really always love talking to you. And now it's just kind of becoming formal. Like we always had these long conversations whenever we meet in conferences and like pre-COVID era, So it's always nice to catch up with you and have this chit chat. About me, I started my career as a tester. I worked in a company for about 4.5 years. Then I kind of got forced into becoming an entrepreneur after that because I did not have a degree, and the company would not pump my salary or my role inside the organization. So I was like, if the system is not going to accommodate me and my talents, I'm going to just carve my own path, and started StyleTag, which was a fashion e-commerce company. We raised $11 million and ran for good 7 years. And this was an e-commerce company before Myntra came into being, Amazon India came into being, and all of that. So we were really early in that life cycle. And as you know, after all these big people came in, it became very hard for a small company like ours to survive. So I had to come out of that. And after that, so in StyleTag is when me and Jeevan worked together. I was the co-founder. Jeevan was heading DevOps there. Jeevan was managing all the AWS stuff and so on. So we both kind of went through that grill of running the infrastructure, ELB, EC2 stack, and going through hardships of scalability and all that. So I came out of StyleTag, and then I started another startup called Wheelsbox, which did not work out, and it was into automobile space. But what interesting thing happened with Wheelsbox, even though the startup did not work out for me, was when I started Wheelsbox, that's when, serverless, there was a little buzz here and there. This is 2018, I think, right? So then I was like, I remember the old days of doing StyleTag where we had EC2 ELB stack. Whenever the phone used to chime, I used to think whether one of the services are down. So I used to look into that and all that. So I knew the pains of running the infrastructure. And when I started Wheelsbox, I wanted to make sure that I simplify that as much as possible. And since serverless was like booming, it was not booming, it was just beginning, I would say. I built Wheelsbox entirely on serverless. And what that made me do is that I realized, oh, this is so awesome. We don't need to do all those things again. So I started, talking about it a lot. I went to conferences, community days across India, and all of that. I started talking more and more about serverless. And then Jeevan also was, very keen, very interested in serverless, and he was also jumping on it because we both shared the same past, right? So, and we both kind of knew what it can do. So we kind of both jumped and started AntStack in 2019. So And Antstack has been really growing really great. It's been doing really, really well. So with that, I will stop because I want to keep some stuff for the later in the talk as well, right?
Definitely. Like, I mean, Jeevan, you want to share?
Yeah, definitely, Arvind. So I would like to start with how I met Prashant. Before I talk about myself over a period of time. So when I was doing my engineering, I read an article about Prashant in one of the Kannada news dailies. So I read about him and I was like, okay, this is interesting. He has done something cool. He comes from a rural background, studying in government school, and he's managed to do something in tech. It was an accomplishment at that time. I'm talking about a decade ago, probably more than that. So I wanted to meet him in my corner of my mind. I wanted to kind of meet him and praise him or thank him for whatever, congratulate him for whatever the work he has done. Uh, then we cut to the career part. So one fine day, I meet Prashant at Google office, and we started talking to each other. But I did not realize it's the same Prashant whom I wanted to meet few years ago. And suddenly I realized, are you that Prashant? I read about you on a newspaper article 3 4 years ago. Oh wow, is that you? I had like the what you call the starstruck moment. I was very happy then he was working with another startup, or he wanted to do another startup. Then he offered me a job. I said, no, let's wait. I have something else in my mind. So after 10 months, again, we spoke to each other, and that's how I got onboarded onto StyleTag and became a DevOps engineer. So I spent my early days of career at StyleTag doing AWS and other things, and that's also when I started more or less AWS User Group Bangalore, along with bunch of other folks like Shrikant, Vivek Juneja, Harpreet, and other people. In the initial days, they were running the show. I was a kind of fresh out of college. I was learning from all these people. How do they run the meetups? How do they talk to people? How do they get the speakers? And other things. And over a period of time, people were busy in their own kind of commitments. Vivek went out of the country. Harpreet was busy. Shrikant was busy, and there were no one taking care of the user group. And one fine day, I kind of felt, why can't I take the initiative and start the user group? I think 2013 or 14 is when I took the kind of charge, and I said, no, let me run the user group. Whatever happens, happens. So that's when the entire the AWS User Group Bangalore chapter, the restart was happened, and I was talking to Sandeep Kashyap one day. I think he's now business development head at AWS for entire South India startups. So he made a strong statement that day, which kind of motivating me even today. That no, this is Bangalore. We cannot let the user group to die. The Bangalore tech community is so good and it's vast. We should keep this user group running. So that's when I kind of decided, no matter what, and run the user group, keep it running. And I slowly built a team to run the user group. We had Prashant, we had Bhuvana, we had Ransi, we had Satya, we had a bunch of other people who were contributing to the user group, and I was Habib with me also. Habib left to Dubai, I think, a couple of years ago. So that's when we kind of built a team. I think in 2016 is when I was awarded as AWS Community Hero. I was the first Indian to be awarded with that title. It was purely unexpected, and I was not even kind of looking forward to it. It just happened because they kind of recognized my work. In the 2017, when we did the first AWS Community Day with like 200 to 250 people, so that's when the entire journey of a user group in a much larger scale started. And 2019 is when I came out of my full-time job and started Einstack along with Prashant. In the 2019 early days, like Jan or Feb, I was constantly talking to Prashant almost on a day-to-day basis that, we should do something, we should do that, we should do this and that. One fine day, Prashant gave this idea, you know what, let's jump onto this, let's help people and organization to kind of move them, help them understand what is serverless, move their workload to serverless, build something new on top of serverless. I was like, let's do it. No second thought. I said, let's do it. Then I came out of my the full-time job and jumped into this.
So I guess there is a lot of community in your careers and your path, right? I mean, people don't generally realize that, but there's a lot of opportunity that communities have given. It's not just even the companies, but then like I guess you have really worked hard. That I would know. Like to the audience, I would definitely say that there was a time that where AWS user group Bangalore would not get like the RSVPs are full and they wouldn't accommodate more people coming in. And those were the days where you have in-person meetups and like you stop people coming from and like and then Jeevan and like Habib were like the people like go-to people where people like, hey, I want to join this, can you please let me in kind of a thing. And those were the days, like I still could remember, and it's really great. I really want to understand like golden days, definitely. You spoke about yourself, you also spoke about your what you call say how your roads merged, and you spoke about a lot. I want you to really talk about, there is a lot of people who want to get started with community or like doing some work, being an engineer, etc. I just want to understand like what did you like becoming an AWS community hero? You told like someone rewarded you, but what are the steps that both of you have done to kind of like become recognized, or like I guess Prashant also have given a lot of PR releases, or like you participated, you gave interviews when there are community days. So how does this all happen, right? Is it just like you speak at a couple of meetups, or is it that you run a group, you have to run a group to do this, or you write blogs, or you do videos, or what is that? People want that magic sauce.
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, there is no hard and fast rule, or there is no secret sauce. I will let my journey. I will explain my journey. Hopefully, it will help others. So, I never till I was kind of awarded as AWS Hero, I was not even aware there is a program called Community Hero, this, that, and all at AWS. I was just passionate to run community. I mean, I have this strong feeling that why companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, all this come from countries like US. Why can't India as a country come out of such kind of organization which are so innovative? So they are so rich in culture. They are driving the world more or less, right? So I had this small kind of what you say kind of I was missing that factor from the entire tech community in India. So I always wanted to contribute whatever I can from my side, and I was constantly looking out, what we can do in India, which kind of brings in the culture of, culture from US, whether it's an organization, community, or whatever. And that's when I learned about this user group concept. I was not even aware the concept of user group when I discovered Meetup.com. That's when I realized. So I thought, okay, this is good. I think let me do my bit here, see if I can bring a bunch of people who are like-minded, can talk about the single technology or whatever. That's when I started the AWS user group, and that was a driving factor. Like I wanted to, do my bit, create a dent, whatever I can, and that was the driving factor. Even today, I'm equally passionate as I was passionate 10 years ago. So that is the driving factor. I have dedicated my weekends mostly, almost, imagine waking up 6 a.m. almost on an every Saturday to run the meetup for the last 10 years. I think if somebody can show that kind of dedication, I think they are eligible to become a hero. And there is another saying in Amazon, which is very important as well, which says, no, if AWS is awarding you as a hero, it doesn't mean that you have become a hero. You have been a hero for a very long time, and it is only now that Amazon is recognizing you as a hero. So Nobody can be a hero overnight. You have to be a hero for a very long time to get the recognition. And second thing is, don't work for the recognition or an award from Amazon or whomsoever it is. Just do whatever makes you feel happy. That's the secret sauce. Even today, I'm equally excited to run the user group. I'm equally excited to run the community, even after 11 years, even after being a community hero, even after starting a company. I feel that's my root. That's my basic instinct. So I never feel bored probably even after 10, 15 years down the line.
I just want to tell you this one, which I kind of like often think the important or difficult things that people think are like, there is no so crazy thing to do to reach a position. It's the most boring and most like, suppose if I want to get fit, I have to stop eating or like start eating a blend diet that makes me much better as a, get me better physical fitness. So similarly, like, if you want to be a, there is a thing like, I think there is a great book also from James Clear about atomic habits, like, wherein you keep doing the same thing, and then like you start to become the build a habit.
Yeah, consistency and persistence is the secret. So, to be very honest, I had meetups where I had only 3, 4 people attending the meetup, but that never demotivated me to stop running the meetup. I'm like, it's okay. Next month I will get 100 people. That was the driving factor. I was very persistent. Only in the last 1 year, where because of the pandemic and other things, we are not regular because even people are equally feeling fatigue about online webinars, this, that, and all. And we are not able to pull that kind of crowd, which makes no justice for the speakers if we can pull that kind of crowd. So we have paused for some time. Once things are normal, we would love to do a big community day offline. We would love to do meetups offline again. Have those fun, amazing conversations with the people.
Definitely. That's the goal, North Star goal for every one of us. Like, just have that. I guess it will go crazy once the pandemic subsides, especially in India, and the gates are open. I guess it will be crazy. Yeah,
We will have
yeah,
crashes.
yeah. Exactly. Gate crashes will happen.
Yeah.
Yes, Prashant. Yeah, you were thinking about saying something, and we were taking the screen space.
No, 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 not at all. So, yeah, my journey is very similar to Jeevan, in fact. And like Jeevan mentioned, nobody starts thinking, I want, this hero title. And, there is no like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and voila, you have a recognition. So it's kind of, we don't know like exactly what AWS, uses what kind of parameters to acknowledge somebody or recognize somebody. We have no clue about it. So for me, again, I was genuinely, thrilled about serverless. And, like I said, I built my entire company with a full stack serverless. And when I found out it is so much better than what we used to do in the past, and, we don't need to go through so much pains as a startup to run serverless workloads. So that's kind of, it gave me a kick, to talk about it. And we were just 3 people who built the entire system for that startup, and it could not have been possible in a conventional manner, right? And also, you will have to think about scalability, all of that, when you are constructing your architecture. So it saved us like crazy amount of time, and we did not need to think about so many things, and there was no need of any kind of PagerDuty alerts, because you are just assured it's always up and everything. So that kind of gave me, I just wanted to, like, I'm like that kind of person. When I figure something out, I just want to tell the whole world about it. Like, I want to bring as many people to this
Best,
knowledge, give
best,
as many people.
yeah, that's the best thing.
And
That's the best thing that
yeah, I want to relieve them of the pains of running the infrastructure. And I want more and more people to realize there is something like this exists, and you guys can have that liberation, infrastructure liberation, probably, I don't know, right? So I went on that quest. So in 2019, I think I gave a talk. I don't know how many talks I gave, to be honest, in all the community days which happened in different cities, including Bangalore, Kochi, Pune, Mumbai. I'm probably missing something here, but you get the gist, right? So, and also I went to Beijing and to talk about serverless there as well.
Yeah, I mean,
I was
I went to China when
China.
pandemic was about to kind of open. It was like, just about the pandemic was supposed to happen. He came from China.
yeah. I was there in October. October, I think the whole thing started somewhere in November, December. So I was there in October in Beijing, and so that's the kind of. It did not matter to me whether AWS will recognize me or not, or if I get anything out of it. It's mostly it's from within me. I just wanted to share this with the rest of the world. That's all the motive was. And similarly, apart from giving all these talks, I was also contributing to a few of the things which is in serverless space. Like AWS Amplify was very new back then, and I was writing up guides on how you can use Amplify in different way. One of those was like like AWS Cognito still do not have native support for phone-based OTP authentication, and I wrote a very nice guide on how you can achieve the same thing using Amplify, using custom auth flow in Cognito, and so on. So there were like contributions in terms of those, and there were contributions in terms of conferences and all that. Right, I gave so many talks, and I did workshops to a lot of college students in a couple of colleges, and so on. And suddenly one day I got a email from AWS saying, we are considering you for Hero, and we need all these details from you. So I was like, wow, how did this happen? And especially it was very surprising for me to get that email. I was not expecting anything at all. It's like pretty much the same case as Jeevan, when he did not even know the Hero thing existed. But in my case, I knew it was there, but I didn't really think I was there to I have made it there to get that kind of a recognition.
I mean, yeah. I mean, both of your journeys are like uniquely a bit different, but also talks about a lot of community in core. I just want to move on, and also because you brought up serverless again and again, and I have so many questions about serverless itself. And I mean, I know that Lambda has happened, and like maybe you heard about the technology and all the reports and various stuff. But when did you start really using in general? Like you built a function and tried it and deployed it, or how did it really happen? In your when you're working, when you're not evangelizing or like talking about serverless, but when did you first write a function and found out it's cool?
So actually, my first encounter to serverless was even before I tried AWS or wrote a function and all that. It actually triggered this thought process in me because of Internet Freedom Foundation. I don't know if you know, Internet Freedom Foundation ran a large campaign about
Probably net neutrality.
Net neutrality. Yeah, I just forgot the term. Net neutrality. And they made this nice page where you just click the button and it automatically composes the email and sends it to the government, right? And then I read about how they did it, because it was at scale, and it was purely serverless, in the sense they did not host it on any server, and it did not have Lambda functions either. It was mostly, I think, static web page hosted on a static hosting or something like that. And that kind of really, and it used the person's Gmail account to send the email, so they did not have to do any of that as well. And when I saw that working at scale, and as a foundation, they did not have to spend money on building this infrastructure and all that, that triggered me, wow, we can do so many things around this. If you just use Google Sheets API and build an application on top of it, that's pretty much serverless for me, right? Because you are not worried about how that Google Sheets backend is managed, what OS it is running, or any of that. So that was my triggering event which happened in me, that to start thinking differently about infrastructure and everything. And like I said, when I started Wheelsbox, I wanted to make sure I follow these patterns, because in Wheelsbox it was focused on automobile industry, and we were doing a lot of things there. And I wanted to put all my focus on building our use cases, what is supposed to be for the customer, and not put my energy into infrastructure and architecting and all that. As engineers, we have the tendency, to complicate the heck out of whatever we do, and it's nice to see all these things connecting together and give you like a matrix like of a feeling. I've built this kind of a feeling. It's always there as an engineer, but I wanted to consciously come out of that and uh, build Wheelsbox on serverless, and that's how I started experimenting with serverless framework. Built the API backend with Node.js and Lambda API gateway kind of a setup, and DynamoDB was also new for me, coming from a SQL background. So initially, it was hard, like to change the philosophy and thought process of how you were doing things from the past to how you should be doing things now. I think I took good 3-4 months to get accustomed to a new way of doing things. And it's not just the serverless, which was that. It was also, I also transitioned from, writing Ruby and Ruby on Rails to Node.js. So I still remember a lot of those days. I wrote a bunch of code, and the execution will happen without stopping, without waiting for anything. And I was like, "What's going on?" And then I learned, async awaits and promises and all of that. So it's all like the new journey for me when I gotten into serverless.
Very interesting. I want to share this with you all. Is like I have during my college days. This is like maybe more than 10 years now. I used to visit a site called labnol.org. So there is a person named Amit. I guess some of you, I still remember it's called Digital Inspiration. I used to do quirky things with some of these APIs, kind of like what you are talking about, and I used to find out how this person has built this, and it's a very interesting tech blog. And it's not like now today there are so many Substacks, so many things to read, so many opinions to read. You wake up to see a lot of funding news, that this and all. But then it was internet probably is a bit different, and I used to follow that, and I find it myself really amazed when you're talking about that. I remember that actually.
Actually, fun fact, I used to run a very popular tech blog called Tech Bangalore. Actually, that's how I got featured on this Kannada newspaper as well. And the Labnol, Digital Inspiration. Back then, there were like very few bloggers. There were not many bloggers. YouTube was not a thing. So Labnol had a page which was featuring all the curated list of blogs from Indians, and I was also there as part of that.
Oh.
That yeah, and also like the phone reviews and all that. I've been there, done that long time ago in my life. Like Nokia at the time used to send us phones, and the PR agency was located in UK, and they used to ship phones from UK to us to do the reviews. This is very early in the journey. It's probably what I'm talking is 2007, 8, 9 kind of a era, where I was actually one of the few bloggers who used to get those phones right, and other people used to ask, "Hey, what can I do? Can I also just do a blogspot.com, and then will I get a phone?" And all of those old days, lazy old days.
Correct.
And talking about Labnol, very recently published an article about how to get the alerts of vaccination slots happening around a pin code or in your area. So I tried that Google spreadsheet script, which kind of sends an alert whenever there's a vaccination slot open. And he is relevant even today, even after 10 years or, for so many years. He is relevant even today. That is something which I loved about Labnol and Digital Inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely I follow him very closely, and I really am quite amazed at the content that he builds. So yeah, I just want to ask this question to you. I mean, like anyone, like Jeevan, maybe you could answer. Like, what are the things that someone should not do with serverless?
So I feel if it is architected well, almost any use case it fits the bill, unless and until you have some business use case where you need to keep constantly running certain things, right? That is where serverless will not fit the bill. If it is an event trigger from A to B, B to C, C to D, I think serverless fits the bill, and also a lot of use cases today, especially the startup environment or the sunrise segments, digital entertainment, digital education, EdTech, or anything, IoT, all these kind of use cases fits the serverless model. If you think that you need to keep running something constantly, so maybe serverless is not a right use case, don't immediately jump the gun and look at EC2 or running anything within VM. Look at the EKS, Fargate, or any containerization model, which will give you a semi-serverless kind of experience, and also the operational burden will be reduced. For me, I got excited when I kind of saw Windsbox and went to AWS account, and I saw there are no EC2 instances running. I'm like, boss, this is it. This is it. This is the future. Let's jump onto this. For me, it was very simple. Okay, I went to EC2 console. I have not seen any EC2 server instances running. I'm like, boss, this is fine. I'm happy with the technology. So I think, and also we were quite early in the game in the initial days. But I think there is a slowly lot of adoptions also happening drastically over the last 1.5 years, thanks to pandemic also, I must say.
Very. I mean, that's a great explanation. So why I ask this question is, lot many people when they start with serverless, they think that I could replace this with everything. I mean, see, any architecture or any pattern, sometimes you have data workload, sometimes you have something that is very unique to your position. You probably can't use serverless, but definitely it fits the bill for a lot of use cases. And there are many services, like you said, the container services, which are adjacent to serverless and probably still do a great job. Now the question is, have you also seen a lot of adoption for open source serverless components? Like you might have heard about Fission, OpenFaaS. What do you guys think about it? Have you got opportunities in projects?
Yeah, people are talking about serverless, open source serverless like FaaS and other things, but I have not heard so far. This is my personal opinion. I have not heard so far anybody using the platform in production. Probably in dev testing or some internal projects, something probably people must be using, but I have not seen a critical workload running in this kind of environment. And serverless, it's not only, so another thing I want to kind of break the myth or myth buster kind of, serverless is not about lambdas or Azure functions or cloud functions, right? It's about the other things which you can do without bringing up an EC2 instance. It can be a storage like S3 or a queuing system like SQS or a notification system like SNS, right? Compute is a very small component of the serverless. When I talk about serverless today, people only think about containers and EC2s and lambdas. So container is a very small thing of the entire serverless paradigm. There are other services which you need to build a good business application. As I said, it may be queuing system, it can be database, it can be storage or anything. So serverless is not just about compute. And I think only in the public cloud environment, you get to experience the 100% serverless paradigm where you don't have to manage VMs or anything. If you want queue, you can plug into SQS. You want compute, you can go to Lambda. You want storage, you can go to S3. It's very hard to replicate the similar serverless experience on-prem, even if you use an open source environment or something. Because ultimately, that environments are again managed by your on-prem system admins or DevOps engineers or whatsoever, right? So I have been hearing a lot, but I've not seen anybody or heard anybody telling that they're using it in production. So that's the point.
Yeah.
So to add to what Jivan said, Arvind, so serverless inherently is kind of locked into a cloud. Whether it is AWS, GCP, Azure. If you want to take full advantage of serverless, you need to, that's the trade-off, that you are getting logged into a system, because it's not just about I made a container and I run it here and I run it there. It's not as simple as that, because you need, like Jivan mentioned, you need PubSub, you need event bus, you need SQS, some kind of a queuing system. You need so many other things, right? And it's not just Lambda, which is the compute layer, which is doing all the things. You are using Lambda along with API Gateway, SQS, S3, SNS, and Event Bridge, and you're probably using AppSync for GraphQL. And there are like so many components coming into picture here. See, in just imagine in last 20 seconds how many AWS components I mentioned, right? So now you build something like this, and now you say, okay, I want to put it on-prem, or I will just shift it to OpenFaaS or something like that. It simply is not possible. You can probably only shift that Lambda, but what about the other components, which is making this giant architecture? It's going to be so you need to go with that trade-off with serverless. The choice is whether you have the time and energy to build a system which is cloud agnostic, and you are taking care of everything. Then you're probably using RabbitMQ and building a container or a service which can do the queuing for you, and you are using something else to manage your emails, and you are doing something else to manage your events, and all of that. So do you have the time for all of that to do it yourself, or are you okay to trade off and go all in with serverless? So that's also a very important factor which people do not consider. That is the first thing. The second thing, Arvind, with respect to people asking, can we do this on serverless? Is this the right use case for serverless and all that? A lot of customers who I talk to, they come and say, okay, I am doing it this way. Like probably they will generally ask this question, like there is one app server running and it is doing polling to some other server and all that, right? So they come and say, can we replicate this here? I mean, you cannot do that. You cannot just take the system which is built for a different architectural pattern, different way of running it. You cannot just take it and put it in new way of doing things. You have to think differently. You need to approach things very differently. Make more and more things event driven, and not keep any service waiting for another service and so on, right? You need to think this serverless approach very differently. So why a lot of people think, oh, serverless is not ready? Because they want to do things their way on serverless, not do things on serverless the serverless way. So that's a major problem, and so we need to think about that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you pointed out you a very interesting stuff. Why I say this, because of this reason, like a lot many times I see developers or decision makers, everyone, right, in general, you have a problem, you find you try to hit with the same hammer, like use the same hammer, like and hit it with that. So, or like you try to bring that technology which is a cool busting and try to force it to fit into your this thing, which is a very common pattern that we see. And I guess you made a really right point, like that is generally everyone should definitely keep thinking of it, like use the technology, use a tool for your benefit. Like you use a different type of like knife to cut different type of vegetables, different types of things, right? So you need to use it, and you need to use it in together, and that's where being an engineer helps. Not even a developer, like being an engineer, that makes us a difference.
Just to add to all what you said, my 2 cents is, number one, the software development is today no longer running all your code within a VM environment. So that is gone. Those are that's the era which is gone. And another thing is, if you have a business problem today, consider any public cloud, the services within any public cloud as a dots, and use those dots, connect the dots with each other to solve your business use case. Like today, even if you look at any public cloud, they have a bunch of services, right? Hundreds and tens and hundreds of services. Use those services, consume those services, solve your problem. Your problems will not be solved running everything within a VM. That ideology is no longer valid today, especially if you're looking at public cloud platforms. I mean, I'm just keeping it simple to make sure people understand this. So forget about running a 1,000 line or a million line of code within a VM. Those are the gone days. Look at how you write less code and get more out of it. Basically, how you can add dots and get more out of it. Like today, if you want to do search, nobody builds, the search engine from the scratch. They'll go to Elasticsearch, push the data, query the data and get the search result. This is as simple as that. So think in this perspective.
Yeah, see, like Prashant validly pointed out, there's always trade-offs, Jeevan. Like it's like what I think is, you kind of pick a thing, but there will be a bit of trade-off, and you kind of like use that, like complement it with some other technology, add it up, make it much better. Like see, a lot many times, like you rightly pointed again, monoliths versus microservices. right? Microservices adds a bit of complexity, but it is giving you scalability and independent execution, updating things, on rolling stuff and all. But it adds a bit of monitoring complexity, and too much of it might also be a problem in the long run. But like too less of it is not what. So it's like a very thin line to balance.
Just wanted to point out, Arvind, that day is yet to come where I have seen somebody do the proper microservices development and deployment. Following all the patterns properly and all that. I still see a lot of people just use, single MySQL database, which is shared with all the services. And a lot of people say microservice, but if you look closely, most people, it's not there.
Yeah, I mean, see, it is not probably for everyone. It is not also probably for like for some apps, financial apps and all. Like you might have the same sort of might want to have the same sort of architecture implemented in the new language, which gives you better performance, scalability, and you don't want to have that independent execution and all. But like I think like you rightly pointed out, it's all a complex thing, and you just need to understand what is there, what is not there. So I want to ask this question again, which is maybe tricky, and I don't know. See, we speak a lot, or like you were talking about a lot about AWS in general, and the world overwhelmingly always worried about like vendor locking. I want to like have something like Docker also has this saying, I think, build once. I mean like ship anywhere, or like something like that. So do you also like do a lot of work apart from cloud, or like like on VMware? I know like Jeevan, you came from a on-prem virtualization company as well, so you work there. But then I want to understand like do you also work in other clouds, and what do you think about that, and how is this is going to play out? What do you think about it?
So we have worked on other cloud as well, but never on any data center technology. This thing, we are a born in cloud company, and more than anything else, our focus has always been serverless. In fact, we have not done anything which runs within EC2 or even containers so far. For the last 1.5 years, by God's grace, we have managed to do just serverless, 100% serverless. And when we say serverless, limitless, we really mean it, and we are living up to that statement as well. We have not done anything so far which kind of runs within a EC2 or a VM environment. Number one.
Yeah,
Number
just
two.
want to interrupt, like even you don't need to say, because it's been, as a developer advocate or like doing a lot of demos, it's been quite some time for me to like spin up a EC2 instance or a VM in any cloud. I haven't done that. I use just building containers or running stuff on servers or all these services actually. Yeah. Please go ahead with your second point. Yeah.
Very recently, I was kind of assisting my friend who is running some WordPress blog on an EC2 or Lightsail or something. I opened EC2 console, the Lightsail console. After 1 year, I'm like, oh wow, this feels nostalgic. It's been 1 year since I opened an EC2 console. This feels so, kind of good old days memories. Another thing is even other clouds are also picking up. The serverless stack is picking up. Like Azure is going strongly around Cosmos DB. We have done good amount of work around Azure functions. Prashant has done good amount of work around Google Cloud functions and stuff like that. The other ecosystem is still kind of emerging, I must say, but AWS is quite mature to some extent or large extent, especially around serverless.
Yeah, I was about to say, we, even though most of the work what we do is on AWS, and I really love the serverless stack on AWS. It's quite vast, and they have a solution for everything, and it enables us to build very complex architecture and so on. But at the same time, when I started with serverless, it was actually on Google Firebase, and the Firebase has very, very low entry barrier. It's really so, Google has made it so nice. It's so simple. You just get in, there is authentication, there is file store database, there is everything which is readily available to you for building your first serverless application. So if for the audience, if you want to just get the glimpse of serverless, low entry barrier, you don't want to learn too much about anything, I think Firebase is a good start. The same thing which is on AWS is AWS Amplify. I think it has much lower entry barrier, even though Amplify is highly opinionated and may not be suitable for much more complex architectural patterns and so on. But as a getting started with serverless, I recommend, going with Google Firebase or AWS Amplify as a beginner. Just spin up your first API endpoint and see how it works, and then you will understand why I'm so enthusiastic about this.
About Firebase in general, like my personal blog still runs on Firebase hosting, and I really like Firebase. I met the founders when Google acquired Firebase, and I mean there was an event in Bangalore, and I think it was Google for mobile or something like that. This is in 2015, and I met all the founders. We discussed about it, and we spoke about. I think the Firebase functions was the one. The name, I guess, and then it has all these mobile auth and NoSQL database kind of a thing. It's really cool, which is very interesting. So yeah, I think Jeevan and Prashant, I think we discussed a lot about a lot of things, right from the community, your journeys, and also to about serverless, do's and don'ts in serverless, use cases, like clouds, multi-cloud stuff, and very interesting details. So I'm always happy to interact with you all. Any closing thoughts, whatever you want to specifically say?
Any closing thought? I mean, if you're looking to start something on your own, if you want to start the entrepreneurial journey, my suggestion is right now. This is the time. Today is the day. Go ahead and start it. You will never get a perfect day or a perfect time to jump onto the entrepreneurial journey. It's been 1.5 years, and it's a kind of major transformation in my life from being an employee to an employer. Trust me, you will not regret whether your startup fails or succeeds. That's a different matter. The journey is so fantastic. Today is the day. Jump onto it. Do not overthink. You will figure out a lot of things as and when the day goes. Nobody is born to be an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs are made, and it's a fantastic journey. And yeah, that's it. That's the closing thought. Stay alive and stay focused. This is something which I learned over a pandemic. It is very important to stay alive, to enjoy the success, or even learn from the failure. And it is very, very important at today's time to be focused on what we are doing and where we are heading. So that's the closing thought from my side.
Great.
Yeah, just to add to what Jeevan said, my closing thoughts are this: that if you are getting into entrepreneurial journey, always recognize the things which you lack, right? Things which you lack, and find a co-founder who can possibly fill those gaps. For me, it was Jeevan and another co-founder, Latif, who perfectly bridge that gap for me, because I understand my shortcomings. One is I am very introverted. I don't like to talk to too many people, not going into too many meetings, and do all of that. But Jeevan is like the complete opposite of it. If in a day he does not talk to like 10 people, he will he will feel sad. So it will be like opposite for me. And similarly, this is something which I realized when we organized community days. Jeevan had this visionary kind of a thinking, and I was more of grounded in reality kind of a person. So he is more of visionary. I still remember the second community day. In the beginning he randomly comes and say we will do 1,000 people community day. I'm like, what? I'm thinking, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, we need to do this, we need to do that, and he's like, I don't care about all that. I want to do 1,000 people community day. That's when I realized, okay, this guy, and we ended up doing it. That's another thing. I'm so grounded in reality, I sometimes do not see that bigger vision. And Jeevan brings in that different lens of looking at things, where he made us actually achieve that goal, which we thought initially when he said was impossible. So it's very important that you kind of understand your shortcomings, and find a person who complements that shortcomings for yourself. That's working really well for us, for me and Jeevan. We are always there for each other whenever we need, and also we fight a lot. But at the end of the day, we respect each other a lot more to understand each other's opinions. So that's very important.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, Jeevan.
Yeah. Last minute. So it's very important to have a co-founder like Prashant who really understands and complements. Because the entrepreneur journey is very lonely. Trust me, it's very lonely. I said it's fantastic, but another thing is it's very lonely. You need a partner. You need a shoulder to cry. You need a person to hug and celebrate the success as well. So it's really, really important to have a very, good or complimenting co-founder. And I think I'm blessed and very blessed to have co-founder like Latif and Prashant as well. So yeah, that's my closing note.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you guys need to also write about not just about serverless, but also about this particular part of the thing, because we spoke about a lot, but maybe a bit less about the culture or the way that you are building, and all the last words that you have said about co-founder and all of these are very, very important, and for not just about building businesses, but it's also about life as well, and mental health, and a lot of these things. So I mean, that's a splendid chat. I think it in a very long time. I mean, I guess I haven't done a chat like this, and like I'm really excited, and what Antstack it has in store, and what gonna like interesting, important, and cool things that are gonna do, build, and share with all of us. I wish you all the best, and then we'll definitely see you again, and we'll definitely talk more about more interesting stuff very soon, Jeevan and Prashant. And thank you again for joining Tech Chat today.
Yeah, thank you,
Sandeep.
thank you, everyone. And people watching this, do not forget to like, subscribe, and comment on the video. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Ruben. It was a pleasure talking to you.